Episode 20 of The Messenger, the Rachael cancer scam. I wanted to get you some information on the podcast. I'm going to be taking a short break, and I'll explain why. When I started all of this, I never thought that timing would be a factor in releasing anything. I never thought that the calendar or the clock would have any sort of impact on how or when I should release anything at all. And I'll get to that in a minute. You probably have heard me say the first season was written between April and May and June and July of 2024, a little over a year ago. And I really had put it away at that point. I was really still so raw from everything. Clarifying it all for you was important. I think important for you and important for me. And I want to do that again for you now for a minute. I found out about her lies on December 20th of 2023. I got a call from her just 2 or 3 days after that. Honestly, hearing her voice after 18 months was still somehow something I coveted. Obviously, I was hurt, I was destroyed. But it was one of those things for me. Her voice always provided some level of comfort. I'm a big voice person. I always have been. I don't know what it is, but there are those people in my life whose voices provide comfort. And hers was one of them. When we had that first conversation, she claimed that parts of her story had truth to them. She claimed that she did have cancer and that she went into the hospital for a short period of time. I followed that up quickly with, so do you still have cancer? And she said, I don't know. And honestly, I don't care. I haven't been to the doctor. I don't really care. I said, well, tell me why you lied about the hospital stay and all the horrors for a year and a half, being held prisoner in a way in that hospital room, and the alleged attacks by the doctors. All of that. It's time for some answers. What part of your story was true? Please, enlighten me.
I know that I hurt you. I will never forgive myself for hurting anyone in this. I'm sorry you are hurt by me. I truly am. I know that I was a coward, and I'll live with that forever. If I didn't love you, I would have been able to walk away and never look back. It wouldn't have been important to me enough to go through this. The love is and was and always has been there and has been real. My life here is hard and not a normal life. It's not an excuse for what I did. It's just the reality of what I was living through.
She claimed that she was being held prisoner, in a sense, by Mark. He would never let her leave. He would never agree to that. I said, well, why did you tell me that you were divorced in 2012? That you had custody of the kids? None of that was true. Why? Her deflection was there in a second. She said she and Mark were never technically married because of what happened at the end of his first marriage. That divorce was never properly finalized. I said, please don't continue to lie to me. And she took offense to this. She said we were never properly married. I said, you went back to Vegas with him on May 27th, 2003, a year to the date, and married him again. The record of the marriage is public on the Clark County website. I have it. That marriage office is down the street from where I'm sitting right now in Las Vegas. Silence. Crickets. For just a second. And then she was ready with more garbage. The marriage was never legal then either. There was an issue with it. And at that point, I had no idea that Rachael would go 9 months after that date and actually marry a guy named Brian in Flint, Michigan. I had no idea. When I was questioning her, I was getting answers that I suppose inside I knew weren't true. She never tells the truth about anything, especially things like this. She just doesn't. At this point, I had no idea she was telling coworkers at the airport that she was a pilot and a trauma nurse and a helicopter pilot. That plot line didn't ever play out with me. It played out exclusively at the San Luis Obispo County Airport. They got that story. They got the story of the alleged self-harm of daughter 2. She's the type of evolved scammer that can run a con on one person and run a different con on another person or a group of people. That's what she's good at. Remember, those lies were happening while I was thinking she was in the hospital during that whole time. Fall of 22 is when she started to work at the airport. I'm thinking she's in protective isolation. She can't talk. And there she is, flying all over the place, working at the SLO County Airport, taking her flight benefits, flying around with her daughters. She was telling this new boyfriend, Russ, she was waiting her onboarding date with American Airlines. She still claimed that she had an LVN license, a licensed vocational nursing license. And of course, she was scamming Mark the entire time, that she was having an affair with me. An affair that started as a physical and emotional one, and it became ultimately just an emotional one because I couldn't see her. She was in protective isolation. I've heard from parents of kids that go to school with Rachel's daughters, people that drove her daughters in carpool, softball, volleyball parents, people that were hearing that Rachael was a pilot. She made those kids complicit. She had everyone going. In 2012, when she told me that she had cancer, she told a friend of hers that she worked with, that's going to be on an upcoming episode of the podcast, that she was sick with cancer. It's a pretty interesting interview. I'm looking forward to sharing that with you, and it will be coming up soon. You know, when she alleged to have gone into the hospital June 5th, 2022, I only spoke with her and heard her voice once after she was outed. Remember, she claimed that because of the CPS investigation, her youngest daughter was going to be with her. The daughter would stay with her in the hospital. There had to have been some planning on her part as to how to play this out. And if I'm being honest, how she was going to play me. She used the daughter's presence as an excuse to not be able to talk to me for the first month, even though I would ask her repeatedly for a call. I want to hear your voice. Just want to hear you say hello. Even if it's quick, please. Oh, I'll try. I can't promise you, I'll try. This is just another place where the shame and humiliation come in. It's tough for me to allow myself to give myself any grace because it makes me feel like an idiot. Rachael had her plan in place to keep me from asking about calls. She claimed that after about 25 days in the hospital, she was not eating and they were going to put a feeding tube down her throat and she wouldn't be able to talk. The first one was through her nose, an NG tube, and then another one into her throat. And as luck would have it, she claimed there was an issue with that. She was just unable to talk from that point. Of course, that tube would remain in her throat the entire time. I wouldn't get to hear her voice. A quick and easy lie about why we couldn't talk. She would claim the only time that it was removed was if they were changing it out or if she was having a procedure outside of the room. What I did know at that point was not a lot about anything. Continued to press for information, say things like, when are they going to pull a feeding tube? When can I hear your voice? When will you be able to call me? I just want to hear your voice. That only happened once in 563 days. Shortly after that, she claimed that due to her compromised immune system, she was being put into that protective isolation. Talked about that in great detail. She thought of every way she could to cut me off from oral communication or from seeing her. We would continue to text. some days for the entire day, from the morning into the evening. She could keep me at bay, continue to have my attention, continue to have it the way she wanted it. The concept that she did this all for attention, it's just so fucking baffling to me. I continue to ask, what does it take to do this to somebody? Narcissists, they want to have your attention. They want all your attention. They care about you in that way. What they don't care about is your opinion on things. They don't want your perspective. It means nothing to them. This is what made her so fucking dangerous. The more she would pull away, the more I would pull closer, find other ways to communicate with her. She would text, and I would respond with a video. I would send pictures. I was her puppet during this time. I allowed myself to get caught up in her web, into her net, and it took an enormous toll on me. In July of 22, about a month after her admission, she began radiation, and that was torturous. That's when I asked her what I could do to keep her calm, to provide distraction. If you recall this part, she said, I just want to hear your voice. Record some voice notes for me. Record something that I can listen to before I go into radiation and afterwards. I started doing that day. She claimed that helped so much. And I started recording those episodes. Harry Loves Rachel. They were 15, 20 minutes long. I talk about the future. I talk about things from our limited past. But I did 80 of them. It was crazy. I still have them on a drive somewhere. I can't listen to them. And I don't know that I'll never release them. These were my daily love letter to Rachel. I would do this to provide motivation. Anything I could. Make her laugh, get a smile on her face. I'd play my guitar. I would do anything that she wanted virtually. She'd say, I want to know what you're doing when you leave the house. Share it with me. I'd tape myself in the car, whatever I was doing, wherever I was going. There were days I didn't do much at all, I suppose. Maybe certain periods, certain hours, or half day or something. There were just many times it was just so difficult to muster up the energy, the strength, to smile, to be entertaining, and just hide my sadness from her.
My Harry, I wish there were words to tell you what seeing you and hearing you does to me. It's such a surreal thing. I feel like I have this insane attachment to you. It's weird. I watch your videos and see your eyes and I melt. Like my heart is so drawn to you. I can lay the phone down on my chest and just listen to you talk. And your voice fills this space inside me I never knew was missing.
My worry for her and about our possible future was at the forefront of my mind. If you examine that for just a few seconds, the cruelty of it all becomes more apparent. She knew exactly what she was doing every step of the way.
Thank you for standing by my side through all this roller coaster of a year, the last year. Thank you for loving me like you do and have every single day. Thank you for being my person for the last year. If I never kissed you again, I would know I was loved like no other. Your love gives me life. Your love keeps me fighting for another day closer to you. Just never underestimate the power of you just being you. Loving me and letting me love you is the greatest feeling I have ever known.
You heard the way the last episode ended. You heard me say that she would have Holt say, make sure you're talking to somebody. Make sure you're getting some help. This is taking a toll on you. It's like someone punching you in the face or putting a hot iron on you, whatever analogy you want to make. It's like someone doing that, and while they're doing that, them taking the time to say, this is going to hurt. You're going to want to get some attention for this. I want to make sure you're okay. I don't know. It's taken me 25 or 30 episodes of this, doing this to get that perspective. The emotional terror that she unleashed on me. It's so very simple, I suppose, yet I was just in the dark about it. Through it all, back to communicating with her after she was outed. I do want to point out to you that the interview with Matt earlier this season provide you some additional insight that I didn't share with Matt during the hour we spent doing that. She was claiming that she was still dreaming of being mine one day and finding a way out of the situation with Mark. She would say, I don't have any right to ask you to remain by my side any longer. I know I lost that privilege, but do understand that I love you, and I have always loved you. You're probably fucking screaming at me right now. What's wrong with you? That's not how people that love each other treat each other. And you would be correct. It's not. We continued to stay in touch daily or every few days. We went to WhatsApp at her request. She had me get a new phone, set my name up on the phone as Stacy, a coworker at American Airlines. She insisted that I only text her with something related to work, nothing personal, and that would be the way that we would deal with things. I acquiesced to that request. She began to tell me that Mark just wasn't letting her do a thing. He was constantly keeping her under his thumb, taking the phone, driving her everywhere. As I've talked about, it's just a mess. She said that Mark was threatening to make her change her number. He was threatening to move so that she wasn't able to be around Russ, around these coworkers, so that I didn't have their address, so that I couldn't find her. He demanded that she changed her email address so that I couldn't reach her. She set this up like a woman in an abusive relationship, a horribly abusive relationship. Mark was a monster that would take what he wanted from her sexually and control everything that she did. He wouldn't let her drive herself to work, wouldn't let her leave the house, wouldn't let her take her car. He would make her leave her car at the airport on days off, or if he was going to have to leave town and do a project, so she didn't have a car and a way to go around, a way to get around. She was trapped. It had all the hallmarks of an abusive relationship. But it wasn't Mark that was being abusive. It wasn't Rachel that was being abused. It was me. In the hospital, Rachel pretended that she was being abused there. She had Dr. Holt telling me that she wasn't being fed. The doctors weren't allowing her to eat. They were deliberately starving her. He claimed that he was close to getting her transferred to a nearby rehab facility that had an emergency medical unit. And of course, he made that happen. He's Dr. Holt. It happened 2 days after the alleged fight between Dr. Holt and Dr. Jared. Holt at one point said to me, you ever heard of the Elizabeth Smart or J.C. Duggard stories? They were kidnapped, sexually abused, and starved. They were both found alive and brought back to health. Now they live normal, healthy lives with marriages, families, children. Holt would say to me, I look at Rachel as a survivor, like one of those girls. We pulled her out of the trenches and saved her. The trenches, the worst moments of her life. You, Harry, you did that. You got the information and you saved her. How's that for fucking bullshit? Just utter bullshit. One thing that's happening present day is that Rachel hasn't worked since May, I'm told. Here we are months later and she's got no income. I mean, Russ is helping. He's going through a divorce and his wife is taking a huge chunk of his retirement and taking him to the cleaners. He's out on medical leave. She's out on medical leave. She's probably gaming the system, gaming workman's comp. Russ, same thing. Rachel's struggling. Things aren't easy for her, which is fine by me. The universe works in strange, mysterious ways. Probably has to do with her being outed at work. Neither one of them has an income coming in right now. She's now resorted, though, to using Facebook Marketplace to sell whatever she has. She's selling clothing, books, her Barbie collection. A couple of things that you might find interesting, at a minimum entertaining, or ironic, or just plain crazy. I learned on Facebook from some people in the Slow Patrol, people that are in San Luis Obispo that report in periodically. They watch things on Facebook and other places. The first picture was almost too good to be true and not use. It's one of Rachel's Barbies that she's selling. It's the I Can Be a Pilot Barbie, in perfect condition, never opened, for $70. Another person sent me a picture of the books that she was selling. One picture had all her aviation books and magazines. Another, some of the non-aviation books in her collection, including the J.C. Duggard book. Yeah, that book, one of several things that became part of her playbook. Think about Holt's note now. Think about what he said, asking me, have you ever heard of J.C. Duggard? Fuck yeah, I have. Those pictures, some videos up on our social media. Social's far ahead of the podcast with a number of things. I want to encourage you to follow YouTube and Instagram and all those accounts. It's just the Rachael Cancer Scam. You can do that, or just Google the Rachael Cancer Scam. You'll find the stuff. Anyway, we continued our limited communication, made some loose plans to see each other, and of course, nothing ever came of any of that. I was left believing that she couldn't have her phone, couldn't take her car anywhere. Just a prisoner like J.C. Duggard. That's why I stuck around. I thought I could help. Thought I could rescue her. Thought I could be her knight in white shining armor. When I got frustrated, I said to her once that I was going to call the Atascadero PD and tell them, and that I would show up when they were coming to help to get her out safely. This triggered her. She said, no, do not do that. If you do that, you will never see me again. Don't try to control me. Don't try to control my life. I'll leave when the time is right. She warned me multiple times about just showing up unannounced. She would say, women like me, we don't just get to walk away from relationships and be okay. Women like me need to be protected, and I need to protect my daughters from him, and I'll go when it's safe. She would tell me that she was 1,000 hours away from getting her commercial pilot's license, but that it was expensive, time-consuming, and with her other responsibilities, she would say, I just can't. And she's so depressed, spending all her days collecting and organizing her things because she was planning her suicide.
I truly feel like today, in this moment, my only hope is to die. It's my only real out with peace. I wanted you more than anything. It's gotten so bad now. I don't know how to leave.
She had nothing left to live for. All of that. She would say that to me repeatedly.
I'll make sure I leave a note to invite you to my funeral soon, so you can see me one last time and say your goodbyes.
At one point, I called bullshit. January of 2024, about a month after all of this came out and she was exposed. I wrote and recorded what had become episode 1 of this podcast, and I sent it to her. I was pissed. I was feeling like she was absolutely just being a liar. And it was becoming more apparent each day that she was. She went sideways. She sent me a couple of messages. One of them said that
Listening to you make a podcast about my fucked up life makes me sick. You should let me go, Harry. You making a podcast about this is awful. I deserve that.
And that she would forever live with the shame of it all. At one point, she said to me, "Why is it so important for you to tell my story? It's my story to tell. It's not your story." Like somehow that fucking sense of self-importance or self-righteousness would have any bearing on what I do? No. The back and forth continued for another month or so. For what? I don't know. I don't have a reasonable explanation for you on that. In March, I got a message from Mark out of the blue. I told him I wasn't going to speak with her prior to that. I didn't want to be in his way. I didn't want him to think I was in his way. I would divert him. The message said, "Harry, what do you know about my second daughter?" I told him what I knew, what she told me in 2012, that she was a product of an assault. And then he sent me this tape that he made of a conversation with her. It was an hour long, and it was the single most damning piece of evidence that I could ever have hoped to acquire. See, Mark had moved into the RV that they own, put it in their driveway. He was sleeping there, and he recorded a conversation that they had about an hour long. Her boo-hooing, crying for attention. She's always just crying for the attention of men. But she started to explain things, and it was insane to me to hear her make excuses, to lie, to do the things that she did. She spent so much time saying everyone in her life had abandoned her, and her life was just shitty and it sucked. At one point, she even went so far as to say to Mark, you just take the girls. They're better off with you. Just take them. Mark said, "No, they love you. They'll forgive you." It became clear to me that she was coming and going when she wanted. He never had any control. She was still seeing Russ, and that she had been at his house for the entire week leading up to that conversation. It was tough for me to believe. Every night she was there, and during most days. Sometimes she wasn't coming home at all. I was furious. I got played again. And then I was fucking done and ready for what would be next, which is what you're hearing now. I sent her a text. I said, "Hey, Rachel, I hear you're not a prisoner in your home, that you've been at Russ's house for the last week, and that you've been seeing him the entire time." And her response to me was, "Who's this? Who's this?" Digest that for a minute. Who the fuck do you think this is? I explained to her that I heard from Mark and that he told me. She said, "Oh, please stop talking to him. You're making it worse for me. You have no idea." I said, "Nice try. I'm ready to share the podcast. I'm going to finish writing my story. And I'm putting it out." She is just pure evil. A rotten human being. The sequence of events fueled my desire to share my story. It gave me the power to realize I could do it, and I needed to do it. I continued to communicate with Mark. We exchanged details and messages. And at one point, he shared with me the prior 2.5 years of texts from his phone using an app called iMazing. It allows users to download texts and notes and anything on our phones. I couldn't read it. I sat on that document for a year. Just like the tape he sent me, I couldn't listen to it all. And then one day this past March, I started going through the messages and the tape. I started comparing the messages that she was sending him with what she was sending me on certain days. It was brutal. It was sickening to me. She's telling me that she's going to the hospital, being transported by ambulance, and how bad things are. how awful it is. Yet, during that time, she took about 17 trips around the country and out of the country. Most with her daughters and a couple with Mark and with Russ. That tape, I'm ready to share that with you too. I'm ready for you to hear it all. It's painful, but it needs to be heard. It's her in her own words, pathetic, filled with excuses and lies and bullshit. The interesting thing in this for me was that in that moment, after I finished listening to the tape and hearing some of the names she was talking about and more about the utter destruction she has left in her wake, I began this trip down this trail, this rabbit hole of finding people, these people, and more that are not discussed. Some you've heard about, some have been here already, some you haven't. I went to court and testified against her on Mark's behalf with this restraining order she asked for and that she received. Funny thing about that restraining order is that she got it 2 weeks after the tape recording that I just told you about. After she told him the girls are better off with him. She was begging him to reconcile. But 3 days after that tape was made, Mark said, I can't do this anymore. And then Rachael turned. And the restraining order got issued on April 15th, 2024. She told the judge she was in fear of her life. I'm in danger. On April 15th, 2024, yet on April 16th, 2024, she goes back into the house, tries to go into the house. Tape is there. I've played it. She went around the house to that unlocked garage, possibly to plant evidence. I don't know. I'm going to share more of my suspicions with you. I can tell you that. And more about this investigation with the Paso Robles Police Department, all of it. I'm not holding anything back at this point. This story gets so crazy. This is where all these things in this season came from and where they came to light. I'll provide the background you need on an upcoming episode. At this moment, I'm putting the podcast on hold for what will likely be about a month, maybe a bit longer. Rachael went to the Paso police with a trove of fabricated evidence, which led to Mark being arrested. The police in that report indicated that much of what she submitted to them turned out to be fabricated. A bunch of threatening texts she sent to herself, claiming that they came from Mark. I'm going to spend a lot of time on unpacking all of that for you. You're going to get all those details in time. Again, I'll point you back to the Instagram or the YouTube accounts to look at some of those videos, some of the detail, some of the evidence that's there, because it's all there. This hearing that's coming up will be telling, and I need to gather as much intel and information as I can and report back to you, which I promise that I will do. So please be patient with me. And before I end this episode, I want to explain a couple of things to you. The voices that you've been hearing this season on the podcast, I owe you some explanations. Rachael's voice is a clone that I made. I took a recording that I had of her, which she sent me in the way of a video for my birthday. That's what she sounds like. That's her voice. It's not an actress. It's just her. Her voice was hoarse at the time, but it's her. The voice of Dr. Holt is a friend of mine, a guy by the name of Jay Dean. Jay hired me when I was 17 years old, and we've remained friends ever since. He's a voice actor and an audiobook narrator. And that voice of his has always provided a certain level of comfort. And when I was thinking about what to do about Holt's voice and putting season 2 together, I had had a conversation with him about my story. A couple days went by and the light went off in my head. And I said, oh, Jay Dean is Dr. Holt. You'd be perfect. And I reached out and I said, can you be Dr. Holt? And he said, send me whatever you need me to read. And I sent him the opening words for season 2, episode 1. One take. It was him. And he was Holt. And he is Holt. It was clear to me that he was perfect for what we needed. And I'm thrilled, beyond grateful, that he's donated his beautiful voice and that his treatment of Holt is here. Andrew Reagan is a young composer and filmmaker. His last name is spelled Ragan. He and I found each other after I finished recording audio for season 1. I asked him to work on episode 1, 10, 15 minutes of it. He sent me what he had done, and I was blown away. He scores every single episode of this podcast, section by section, based on what he hears and my words. His work is amazing. He captures the moments beautifully, the sadness especially. I'm grateful to him as well. And my friend Matt Grasso has served as my partner in this. You heard him on that interview, episode 14, I think. But I haven't spoken about the nature of our relationship, the history of our relationship. I met Matt in 1999 when he worked for me. We developed a close relationship and friendship, and we've continued to be the best friends since that time. His help with writing, his ideas, his skill set, his guidance, it's been amazing. There are more people to thank, and I'll do that in time. This leaves me with where we are today. I've been waiting to see about this hearing with Mark. It's possible that it could go sideways, possible that he could end up in prison. I think there's a cover-up happening at the highest levels in San Luis Obispo, and I'll spend time on that. Please check back with us on Instagram or here on YouTube. We'll be back next time on The Messenger, the Rachael Cancer Scam.